wonderful love story. Dolly Parton's husband, Carl Dean, who supported the country music star in life, love, and her career, passing away at 82.
Dolly Parton has just torn down the veil of mystery shrouding Carl Dean for nearly 6 decades, and the truth isn't nearly as charming as people once believed. A marriage that seemed flawless, a love enduring through time, but behind the dazzling spotlight, beyond the sugary melodies, light-shadowed corners, never before exposed, Carl Dean isn't the man the world pictured, and what's even more staggering, Dolly Parton herself pulled back the curtain. Why did Carl Dean vanish from public view? Was he truly the devoted husband everyone assumed, or is the reality harsher than even Dolly's fans could fathom? Unkempt promises, untold secrets, and a truth so stark that even Dolly can no longer conceal it. For over half a century, Dolly Parton has shone as one of America's most radiant country music icons, with her distinctive voice, flamboyant style, and unmistakable spirit. She's a name every country music lover recognizes, yet one question has always lingered in the public's mind: who is the man behind Dolly's dazzling glow? Carl Dean. They tied the knot in 1966, when Dolly's career was just budding, and stayed together nearly 60 years, a remarkable feat in the temptation-riddled world of showbiz. But Carl Dean has scarcely ever stepped into the public eye. He skipped Dolly's award ceremony, missed her grand performances, and barely anyone can say how many official photos of him exist across decades with a wife famed worldwide. Why did Carl Dean choose to remain an enigma? In 1964, at 18, Dolly Parton arrived in Nashville, chasing dreams of singing stardom. Back then, she wasn't a star, just a young woman with lofty ambitions. Fate then led her to Carl Dean. They met outside the wishy-washy laundromat, an unlikely spot for a lifelong romance to spark. Carl, 21 at the time, was instantly captivated by the blonde girl with a beaming smile. This was the day my life began, he once said of meeting Dolly. Yet unlike the bold image of a Southern gentleman, Carl wasn't one for public displays of affection. Instead, he showed his love quietly, steadfastly. Dolly felt drawn to Carl too, but she didn't rush. In those days, a young woman couldn't easily date a stranger. They met on her aunt's porch for a week before Dolly agreed to a private outing. From there, a simple yet enduring love story took root. Though he loved an ambitious singer, Carl never craved a piece of Dolly's glitzy world. He ran a road paving company, a job worlds apart from his wife's shimmering music career. As Dolly knocked on record label doors, Carl stood patiently behind her, supportive yet uninvolved. He loves me good and all, but I'm really not his favorite singer, Dolly once told Variety, hinting at Carl's independence from her musical realm through Dolly's most dazzling years. Carl Dean kept his vow. He stayed out of the spotlight even as Dolly racked up prestigious awards, from Grammys to CMAs. Carl opted to stay home rather than join her. There was one rare exception when Carl attended a major event, the BMI Song of the Year ceremony, but after a single night he firmly declared, "Don't ever ask me to go to another one of these damn things, because I ain't going." Dolly honored that choice. Carl wasn't a man for parties, fame, or recognition. He was simply an ordinary soul who loved an extraordinary woman. But did this distance help their marriage stretch nearly 6 decades? It's undeniable that Carl's retreat from attention fortified their bond. No media pressure, no prying questions about their private life. Yet it raises another thought: was Carl truly content as the man in the shadows? Dolly once shared that Carl never cared for her music, though he took pride in her achievements. Still, whispers suggest Carl sometimes felt lonesome when Dolly toured endlessly. Early in their marriage, they Dreamed of a small family, but Dolly's health condition dashed that hope. This plunged Dolly into a severe emotional spiral, and Carl stood by to pull her through. But what about Carl? Some sources hint Carl felt neglected, especially as Dolly's career soared while she dazzled globally. He lived quietly in Nashville. They carved out time together with RV trips, dodging Hollywood's chaos. But was that enough? In his final years, Carl slipped further from public view as his health weakened. Dolly scaled back work to be with him, yet even as his condition grew serious, no photos or updates about Carl surfaced on March 3. Dolly from the cozy nest she once envisioned. Carl, by contrast, never craved the spotlight. He sought a peaceful existence far from fame storms, while Dolly jetted between cities performing. Carl stayed home tending to simple joys, the garden, their dogs, and old truck. Folks say he loved Dolly his way, no need to flaunt it, just enough that she knew. But did that love ever leave Dolly feeling alone during her busiest career years? Dolly admitted she couldn't give Carl much time. I'm married to Carl, but I'm also married to my music, she once said. This might be their marriage's greatest irony. Love endured, but distance did too. That gap carved unseen cracks. No one dared mention one of Dolly Parton's deepest regrets is never having children. As a young couple, she and Carl longed for a family, little ones scampering around their yard. But in the 1980s, a crushing blow struck. Dolly suffered from endometriosis, a harsh condition impairing fertility. After prolonged pain, she underwent a hysterectomy, ending her dream of motherhood for a woman who craved love and family. This was a devastating hit. She later recalled the dark days post-surgery. It was an awful time for me. I went into a deep depression beyond physical loss. It left an aching void in her spirit for a long stretch. Dolly sank into sorrow, adrift, even wrestling with the bleakest thoughts. Where was Carl in all this? Those close to Dolly say Carl was her rock, but in his quiet way, no grand pep talks, no movie-style romance. Instead, he let Dolly heal herself, standing by, silent, patient. After years grappling with grief, Dolly found fresh purpose. She poured time into charity, aiding kids through her imagination library, gifting free books to little ones. In her own way, she lived out her family dream, not birthing children, but nurturing millions across America. Though he shunned media his whole life, Carl Dean's final years brought anguish no one could mask. He faced a neurodegenerative illness, his memory slipping away. Carl, the man who'd guarded his privacy for decades, now confronted a brutal truth. He was forgetting everything, even the wife who'd stood by him nearly 60 years. Dolly never detailed Carl's health publicly, but insiders knew she sacrificed much to care for him. She cut back work, find big projects, staying home more. He's still the same person inside, and I'll always be here for him, she once said. But what pain cuts deeper than watching your beloved forget you? Dolly was used to Carl's distance, his choice to stay shadowed all those years. But this was a different rift, not by his will, but because he couldn't recall sweet moments, shared memories, all fading for a woman who'd spent her life singing of love. This might be her greatest heartbreak in nearly 60 years. Carl Dean was never a typical husband by public standards. No appearances, no flowery words, no romance the world might call grand. Yet he loved Dolly his way, quiet, steady, needing no proof for outsiders. Perhaps that's why their love lasted so long. Dolly Parton and Carl Dean's marriage is a rare tale in Hollywood, a world of allure and fragile bonds. Like all great love stories, though, it bore losses and sorrows. Dolly's career lifted her to heights few reach, but it cost personal sacrifices when the stage Lights dim, the applause fades, all that remains is love, a love unshowy, needing no validation, enduring even as memory wanes with time. Carl may have forgotten much, but one thing the world won't: how he loved Dolly and how she loved him. Across nearly 60 years, on March 3rd, the world reeled as Dolly Parton announced Carl Dean had passed, but what stunned people more wasn't the loss, it was how it unfolded quietly, without fanfare, no grand funeral, just a brief message from Dolly. Across nearly 60 years together, Carl Dean was Hollywood's most elusive man. He never craved attention, never joined Dolly at major events, even in leaving this world he chose utter most. Dolly Parton never confirmed this publicly, but signs suggest she quietly tended to him for years. Lately she cut tours, passed on big projects, stayed home. More friends say it was for Carl. He needed her like never before, but Alzheimer's is merciless. It wounds the afflicted and torments those beside them. Carl Dean, who'd stood behind Dolly's glow, now couldn't even recall who she was. That was likely Dolly Parton's deepest wound. He was my best friend, my partner, my love, and then one day he started forgetting things. First little things, then bigger things, and then he started forgetting me. For a woman who'd sung of love her whole life, what's more crushing than seeing her dearest forget her? Some insiders say Dolly Parton strove to spend every moment possible with Carl, but she couldn't always be there. Her career lingered, duties she couldn't drop. There were days she had to leave, and word is Carl Dean passed on one such day. This truth prompts a question: did Carl Dean leave this world alone? Did Dolly, who called Carl her greatest love, miss his final breath? No one can say for sure. Doll's never spoken of it. She keeps the silence. She's guarded the marriage with for 60 years. Whatever happened, one thing's clear: she loved Carl Dean as fully as a woman can. Carl Dean's departure without a ceremony surprised many, but those who knew him understood it's what he wanted. Carl never liked attention. He didn't want a sob story in papers, didn't need strangers mourning a man they never knew. He just wanted to go quietly as he'd lived. Dolly Parton, who'd faced millions on stage, likely grasped that love needn't be paraded. Some things outshine grand funerals or media laments, memories, moments only they shared. He didn't want a big fuss. He never wanted to be the center of attention, so I respected his wishes, and so Carl Dean left hushed, leaving no mark for the world. But for Dolly Parton, he's still there. He's the man she loved nearly 60 years, the one she sang of in timeless love songs. Though the world may forget Carl Dean, the shadow to a legend, for Dolly he remains an undying light in her heart. True love doesn't need proof, it just needs to be felt, even when the one you cherish no longer remembers you. Dolly Parton once promised Carl Dean a simple life, a cozy home, a warm family far from Hollywood's clamor. It was a 20-year-old's vow when love was everything thing and the outside world seemed trivial. But as years rolled on, that promise drifted into a distant dream as Dolly soared to fame's heights, while Carl stayed quietly behind. Did Carl ever feel left behind? Were there lonely nights when he wondered if he truly fit into Dolly's life, and as illness struck, his memory faded? Did he still recall that old promise, or was it just a blur lost in Alzheimer's fog? When Dolly Parton met Carl Dean in 1964, she was a young dreamer and he a plain man, fond of peace. He never craved the stage's glare, never chased Hollywood's dazzle. Their 1966 wedding held dreams of a calm future where love trumped fame, where they'd live as any couple might. But Dolly Parton wasn't built for calm. Lonesome when Alzheimer's hit, as his memory slipped away bit by bit, Dolly Parton was still deep in her career. She stood on stages, gave to fans, remained a living legend. And meanwhile Carl Dean. Once her whole world was forgetting it. All at some point Dolly likely saw time running short. She'd chased her career for decades, but her husband couldn't wait forever, so she paused. Dolly Parton dropped major tours. She trimmed her workload. She spent more time with Carl, tending to him in his final years. Those in the know say she did all she could to make up, staying by him, reading to him, singing to him, trying to anchor him in her world as long as possible. But with Alzheimer's nothing suffices. Carl Dean forgot piece by piece. Some days he knew Dolly, others she was a stranger. Most wrenching, he may have passed without recalling the woman beside him was his life's love. I tried my best to keep my promise, but I couldn't stop time. Dolly Parton did all she could to atone, but some losses can't be reclaimed. Does Dolly Parton harbor regrets? Likely yes, she said Carl Dean was the only man she truly loved, but she knows she wasn't there for him as much as he deserved. She can't rewrite the past, yet she poured everything into the present to mend it. Did Carl Dean ever blame her? Probably not. He never complained, never demanded more than her love, even as illness stole his mind. Deep down he might have known she always loved him somehow. Though Carl Dean is gone, their love lingers, not in magazine snaps or Hollywood spun romance, but in Dolly's songs, melodies she sang lifelong, not just for fans, but for the man who was her world. She may not have kept that early vow fully, but she did what mattered most. She loved Carl Dean with all her heart, the only way she knew how. For nearly 6 decades, Carl Dean was almost a phantom in entertainment, the husband of a towering star, yet a man no one truly knew. No red carpets, no big events, no interviews, barely spotted in public. A man choosing seclusion for 60 years. Is that a preference or an unsolved riddle? More crucially, what did Carl Dean conceal? The strangest thing about Carl Dean is his absence from Dolly Parton's key moments. Big artists often have spouses at major events, partners woven into their climb to greatness, but with Dolly Parton one piece was always missing. Carl Dean, when Dolly nabbed Grammys, graced lavish galas, or got honored for music's sake, Carl was never there. No joint photos, no shared interviews, no tender public moments. It made folks wonder, did Carl Dean even exist, or was he just a name in Dolly's bio? Of course Carl was real, but why hide so thoroughly? A man dodging media that long stirred curiosity over years. Countless theories sprouted about why Carl Dean stayed gone. Carl didn't just love privacy, did he have something to bury? Some believe Carl Dean wasn't merely shy, perhaps he had another life, a past he didn't want exposed. Rumors hinted at a double existence, that his seclusion masked separate ties beyond marriage. No proof backs this naturally, but Carl's mystery left room for such tales to spread. Did Carl secretly resent Dolly Parton's stardom? Others think Carl Dean never fully backed Dolly's career, not from jealousy, but aversion to fame's world. Dolly once said Carl never watched her TV spots or listened to her songs. It could mean he prized privacy or simply didn't care for her work. Maybe he loved a dreamer in 1964 but never foresaw her legend status. When it happened, their gap widened. Dolly Parton's a tough soul. She always guarded Carl, keeping their private life close if he'd been unwell long before. For it's no shock she'd stay mum throughout her career. Dolly Parton never fully explained Carl Dean's reclusive ways. She just said he liked privacy, cared little for fame, wanted a normal life. But can anyone buy that? A man vanished from view 60 years just because he shunned attention. Maybe Dolly kept another vow to Carl, promising never to share too much about him. Maybe she knows things she'll never tell. Maybe Carl Dean Took his secrets with him, leaving a question without an answer. Carl Dean wasn't a fame seeker. He left no songs, no films of his life, no interviews for posterity to probe, yet he's still a vital thread in Dolly Parton's legend. He loved her when she was an unknown dreamer. He stood by her, if not always how the world expected. He's the man Dolly wrote of in her songs, the one she loved lifelong. Whatever Carl Dean hid, whatever secrets went with him, one truth holds: he was Dolly Parton's greatest love, and that perhaps matters most. Carl Dean is gone, but his life's mystery endures. A man nearly invisible to the public for over half a century. A marriage among entertainment's oast, and a love both steadfast and distant beyond belief. Dolly Parton never beat her private life fully. She doesn't have to. But now with Carl past, people wonder, will she ever break her silence and tell their real story, or will it stay buried in enigma without end? Through her career, Dolly Parton dazzled publicly, yet guarded her personal world fiercely. Asked about Carl Dean, she'd smile and say he's just not into that whole show business thing. But if it's just disliking fame, why leave no trace for decades? No interviews, no fleeting sightings, no direct words from him. Did Carl ask Dolly to keep him secret, or does she have her own reasons for holding back on this man more pressing? Now he's gone, will Dolly keep it all locked away? A songwriter like Dolly Parton can hide secrets and talk, but not in music. Of the hundreds of songs she's penned, how many truly speak of Carl Dean? Many believe From Here to the Moon and Back is among her truest odes to Carl. I could hold out my arms, say I love you. This much I could tell you, how long I will love you for. I could tell you how true, and be blue for you, even count all the ways I adore you. The lyrics feel like a deep confession, a pledge, a love spanning years. But if that's the whole truth, why did Carl always stay apart from Dolly's world? Rumors suggest Dolly wrote songs of separation, ache, lonely moments she couldn't share. Maybe her saddest tunes are missing pieces of their love story. But if so, why has she never spoken up? Another theory on Dolly Parton's silence about Carl Dean: she might have promised him she'd never tell the truth. Dolly's a woman of her word. If Carl begged her to keep him out of her towels even after he's gone, she wouldn't break that trust. That explains why, despite public hunger for answers, Dolly stays quiet, and she might care that secret for life. Dolly Parton nears 80, yet she's still vibrant, writing, performing, a towering American music legend. One day she might pen a memoir and unveil Carl Dean's truth, or she might never. Sometimes the finest stories are those left untold. Whatever Carl hid, whether their marriage was pure joy or held unseen pain, one thing's certain: they loved each other their way, and that perhaps is what counts most. Carl Dean has passed, but his mystery lingers. Dolly might stay silent forever, yet the world won't stop asking, so what really happened, and will Dolly ever dare tell it